tonight we're going to talk about dividing by double digits. We're going to start off by using what are actually strategies versus steps. They're not necessarily needed in order to solve the problem, but they are good ways to get it started. So, first thing you want to do is you want to write your ins and outs. Since we're coming from always using a division house and we're moving into using division sentences, it's good to see that the first number will always go inside of your division house and the second number will always go outside of your division house. So I'm going to take this 41 and have 673. To use compatible numbers, remember we're going to look at the divisor and we're going to round it. In our case, we're going to round it to 40. Now if you're still having trouble with compatible numbers, make sure that you go check out the video to help yourself get more confident in using compatible numbers with division. Now, when we're using compatible numbers, we've rounded this to 40, so that means we want this 67 to be a multiple of 4. And the reason I say 4 and not 40 is because I know that my last digit's going to be a 0, and I'll be able to use that rule of 0 that we learned in order to cancel some zeros out. So if I think of 40, then I know I can have 60, 64, 68, 72 as my closest multiples to 67. So I see that 67 falls between 64 and 68, and it's closer to 68, so I'm going to go ahead and round it to 680. You always want to find the closest multiple that it falls between. Now, rule of 0 says that if I've got a multiple of 10 underneath and outside, they actually cancel out. So really all I'm solving is 68 divided by 4. So 4 goes into 6 one time with 2 left over, and 4 goes into 28 7 times. So this tells me that my answer is going to be pretty close to 17. It may or may not be 17, but it's going to be close enough that it will be reasonable. So let's talk about our steps. Take your 41, and here there are 2 strategies. You can take your compatible number to kind of help yourself out, or you can use strategy 2, which is kind of find a middle ground. So you need to find what your divisor goes into the dividend. I'm going to start a place value at a time. Can 41 go into 6? The answer is no. So every number underneath the division house has to have something above it. So if it can't go into it, then it needs to have an X or a 0. Before the number, it can have the X. Once the number starts, it really needs to be 0. So now I've got 41 going into 67. Now, according to my compatible numbers, I could probably use 1. Looking here, I also know that it's going to be 1. Because I can't get 2, which is 82, to fall underneath 67 because you don't want to go over. So 7 minus 1 is 6. 6 minus 4 is 2. I now have one more number. See, everything underneath has to have something above it. So I'm going to bring down this 3. Now this tells me it's going to be somewhere around 7. But I'm going to go ahead and show you strategy 2. Strategy 2 is taking the middle number, 5. And I'm going to put S2 up here so you know. So S1 is kind of taking your compatible numbers. S2 is finding a middle ground. So 5 times 1 is 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So 41 times 5 is 205. Because I used 5, that means I am either going to go up from 205 or I'm going to go down from 205. I need to get to 263. So that tells me that whatever I'm multiplying by has to be bigger than 5. If this answer had been less than 205, that tells me that I would use a number that's below 5. So I'm going to use, it's pretty close, so let's go ahead and use 6. At this point, while we're trying to find our quotient, guess and check is going to be used a lot. So knowing your multiplication factors is extremely important. So you all have multiplication cards. Make sure that you're using them. Flashcard yourself. Ask mom and dad to help. Ask sister, brother. 6 times 1 is 6. 4 times 6 is 24. Now, that's close. So I know that I'm not going to be able to get another 41 in there. So I'm going to bring this up here. And now I'm going to subtract. Don't forget to borrow if you need to. So 6 goes into 13 7 times. 5 minus 4 is 1. Now we have two options. We haven't learned to move into the decimals yet, so we're not doing that. But if you recall, you've got your two choices. You have the choice you've been using, which is going to be 16 remainder 17, or you can remember to put it in a fractional form, where 16 becomes my whole number, 17 becomes my numerator, and my divisor, that 41, it becomes my denominator. Both of these answers are correct. So as of now, I will accept either one of those answers. Later in the year, that might change. We're going to be moving away from using that remainder. But for now, this is how you're going to work. You want to use your guess and check. And if you notice, 16 is pretty close to 17. So it is reasonable for that to be our answer. All right, have a good night.